Good morning. I would like to call the special meeting, May 22nd, 2026 to order. Adam, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Argo. Here. Mr. Horton. Here. Mr. Wynn. Here. Ms. Schaefer.
Here.
Ms. Casper.
Here. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I need a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Mr. Zink, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Schaefer.
Yes.
Mr. Argo.
Yes.
Mr. Horton.
Yes.
Mr. Wynn.
Yes.
Ms. Casper.
Yes. I need a motion to, Adam, there's only
Enter-
one on here, is that, okay?
Yep.
I need a motion to enter into executive session to prepare for conducting or reviewing negotiations or bargaining sessions with public employees concerning their compensation or other terms and conditions of their employment per Ohio Revised Code 121.22 G4. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a
Second.
Is there any discussion? Mr. Zink, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Schaefer.
Yes.
Mr. Argo.
Yes.
Mr. Horton.
Yes.
Mr. Wynn.
Yes.
Ms. Casper.
Yes. We will be back. Where's my pen? not here to start us. Ready? Okay, I'm pulling us out of executive session and asking for a motion to approve the LEA contract, July 2026 through June of 2028. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
Discussion.
I would just like to say we did a different process this year where we did interest-based bargaining. So we all put up overall objectives, what everyone's interests were, and then how might we find solutions to those interests. We had an outside facilitator, and having been involved in the past where we have done a different process, I just was so appreciative of how collaborative we were, how we looked at language that had just gotten a little bit messy over the years as things had gotten added to it. How can we clean it up? How can we make it clearer? What are we trying to accomplish was the focus, and how might we best serve our children? The facilitator, I think, pushed both, I assume both sides. I know he pushed us at times to say, okay, if you can't do this, what might we be able to do to still meet that objective? And it was a process that was a pleasure to be a part of, and in my opinion ended up with a better result in the end. So I just thank Dr. Whiteley for introducing us. We had done it, I understand, years and years ago, before anybody who I think is still involved was involved. But bringing us back to that process, and just it was a pleasure to be a part of, and I'm thankful for the end result.
Anybody else? Just thank you, Mrs. Schaefer, for sitting on that committee and representing the board, and to Dr. Whiteley and Mr. Zink. I know it was a lot of hours, but we appreciate all that you did to get us here.
I would like to thank the management team that sat with us. It's a big time investment, and I know that's a lot of time away from families and just life. But I do think it made our team, our internal team, better, and our collaboration with the other team better. But again, I'm just super appreciative of the team that we had at the table that included principals and different central office staff. It was just really good to work through that process together.
Yeah, any time that we can all be together and you don't have to run to a caucus room to have discussions about things, and we can have it all in the open. It not only helped all of us, but it also helps sometimes for the bargaining unit employees to be able to, understand where we're concerned. A lot of times the concerns that we could have are revolving around implementation or consistency and continuity of the processes and how we do it. And I think that makes it a very holistic process that was helpful for everyone.
Yeah, thank you to everyone that was involved. Does anybody have anything else? All right, Mr. Zink, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Argo?
Yes.
Mr. Horton?
Yes.
Mr. Wynn?
Yes.
Ms. Casper?
Yes. I would entertain a motion to adjourn. It's been lovely spending the entire week with all of you, but it's time to adjourn, so I need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, Mr. Zink, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Argo?
Yes.
Mr. Horton?
Yes.
Mr. Wynn?
Yes.
Ms. Casper?
Yes, thank you all again.